Three, two, one.
Who knew that making the best of the theatrical release Transformers movies, or at least the live action ones, would just be to make a competent movie that also has Transformers in it, right?
Yeah, that's the truest intro that we've done so far. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Baycast, the podcast where we talk about all things, or all movies. Michael Bay. I'm your host, Jacob,
Co-host Michael.
and today we are talking about not quite a Michael Bay movie, even though he did produce this. We're talking about the prequel slash reboot to his Transformers movies, 2018's Bumblebee. Yeah, I am. This one's pretty interesting, I would say. All right, I'll let you take over.
especially in compare,
Yeah, because you're the Transformers
especially
fan.
in comparison to the other movies that are theatrically released live action Transformers. Those had a very specific Michael Bay setup, like the military, horny teenager. It just had to encompass all the things that makes Michael Bay's movies what they are. This is essentially audiences weren't really resonating with that near the end. What do we do? Oh, movies like the Iron Giant. Just make that.
Yeah,
And people like the Iron Giant, and sure enough, basing a Transformers narrative on another pre-existing decent big robot movie makes at least a competent film, and at most a refreshingly wholesome adventure compared to any of the Bay movies.
yeah, very much so. So I think I mentioned in some of the previous episodes that I kind of felt like the uh Michael Bay's like first three movies were kind of like a very chaotic coming of age story of Sam Witwicky, which is Charlie Buff's character. This literally is just a coming of age story that just happens to have Transformers in it, like through and through. It's basically just Edge of 17, but with Transformers.
If you weren't going to say that, I was going to.
Yeah.
And
Uh.
it's PG-13 instead of R-rated, and instead of coping in terms of sexuality, it's the yellow lad Bumblebee just kind of vibing.
Mm-hmm. Uh. And all right. I'll just. What do you think? Let me ask. What do you think first about this movie? As a Transformers fan,
Viewing
you
it
are.
as a Transformers fan, I'm pleased that it decides to treat most of the Transformers stuff, though, like the other movies, there isn't that much of it, with some degree of as much reverence as you can for it being the series Transformers,
Mm-hmm.
and also just taking what few properties have worked like critically and kind of mishmashing it. Because you said it's a coming of age story, but there are Transformers things in it. And the second you start seeing Transformers show up, you know it's not a Michael Bay Transformers movie.
Yes, very much so. Um, I definitely think this was objectively, and I guess in my opinion too, just the best Transformers movie. I mean, I haven't seen the '86 movie because I'm not like
I mean, it is the
that.
greatest movie of all time, but it's also horrible.
Yeah, but I think this is definitely the best live action Transformers movie just because it tells a story that makes sense and isn't overly confusing or complicated, and
Stop. It tells a story that
has
makes sense.
decent-ish characters.
At least more like some good characters and a few attempts at characters, which is better than none,
Mm-hmm.
effectively. Well, I mean, Sam was a character for better or for worse, but that was pretty much the only one that got any development over three movies. The lead is Haley Steinfeld. God fucking bless Haley Steinfeld. In this movie, both due to her actually being good at acting and a better script, she gets more earnest development and is more likable than any point Sam was in any of the three movies.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Well, I'm not gonna act like this is like the bet. Like she's like the best character in any of these coming of age
Oh
movies or any
no,
Transformers
but
movie. But like they develop her well, or like they establish her well. Her arc makes sense throughout the movie, and you actually don't want to see her die, unlike most of the characters in the Michael Bay movies.
yeah, by the end when she's caught up in the Transformer action, it's like, oh shit, get out of there.
Yeah.
whereas we were watching other movies like, if Sam got crushed by Megatron, that would be funny. But I don't have that malice towards characters Charlie.
Mhm.
I mean, I have the bias because I love Haley Steinfeld, but it's also just like a lovable, quote unquote relatable in the same way as Edge of 17, which is just her. I am a quote unquote normal teenager act that she's done for this Edge of 17, kind of Hawkeye a little bit. She's
Yeah.
very good at doing it, to be fair. So I don't. I'm not going to hold that against her or the movie.
Yeah, but no, yeah, she's a well, I'm not gonna say she's really good, but she's actually like pretty good in this movie, and especially like since she's a young actor, she's basically the main character, and she's carrying this movie. I think she does a great job. Uh, Also just say, we'll get this out of the way that since this isn't directed by Michael Bay, it's directed by Travis Knight, who
Yes,
directed Kubo and Two Strings, which is a movie I really like.
I
So I
really like
was
that movie too.
Yeah. So I was excited to see because obviously that movie is stop motion and it's a very beautiful looking film. I was excited to see like what visual style we bring to this, which
But
isn't much. I will say this is a blander looking movie than the Michael Bay movies, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, if you know what I mean.
it is okay. I'm gonna play both sides in saying that it does look fairly generic, especially in comparison to other movies. But it also looks exactly like a real '80s coming of age movie,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was the point. I'm not going to say it's an excuse, but a lot of fundamental shortcomings of this film are probably attributed to it holding too closely to being that kind of nostalgia trip. Like this is like a movie we would have in the '80s if the computer graphics were better, which
Yeah.
it definitely is, because that is like if Iron Giant was '90s, but that in itself was a sort of throwback to the '70s, '80s. Person finds whimsical vehicle. This is essentially just fucking Herbie fully loaded, but instead of racing, it's fighting. It's like Decepticons. It's the same type of
Wow.
fucking car.
You just blew my mind with that statement. It is for it is
It's
for
like
me fully loaded, kinda.
or any of the Herbies. I
Yeah.
think Fully Loaded is one of the more recent
Well,
ones,
okay, that
but
that that one's
it's
basically
any of them.
at least from like the little I watched of it when I was like 4 or 5 or whatever. It was basically just like a
I just
coming of
remember
age story
them.
with Lindsay Lohan, with her
I
getting a talking car or whatever, and that's basically what
think
this
she's
movie
alive.
is.
I don't think it talks.
Does it not? Oh,
Well,
whatever. I don't.
that
I
movie
haven't
doesn't
seen any of
talk
the Herbie
much.
movies. Okay, whatever.
That's fair. I think
Yeah,
I saw that one
yeah.
specifically. Remember they using the police in the trailer for it on Disney Channel.
Mm. Uh,
But the bands, not the organization.
yeah. I
But
guess. Sorry. I was just saying, like, yeah. I guess it does. It does feel like an '80s coming of age movie in depth parts. I remember like they play a lot of '80s music, which is like obvious for like these type of movies, which are set in the time period. They got some good shit in there, like Duran Duran stuff like that. Actually,
oh
like
no,
when I was
it's a very good soundtrack, and
yeah,
it's less slapdash than like Suicide Squad. Most of the time, there'll be a scene. It's like, oh, I can understand how that would relate to the characters in some way. Maybe not like at a James Gunn level, but above average for just cramming popular music on a movie.
yeah. Actually, like at one part of the movie, like when some of the songs were playing, my dad was like, "Yo, what are you watching? The soundtrack's great," and I was like, "Bumblebee."
2018 movie Bumblebees.
Yeah, yeah, great film, great film. Um, I mean, I'm not sure like how much we actually like want to like discuss like the plot through and through of this movie because it is kind of basic and there isn't like that many like funny
I think
moments.
there are things to go through it. I think this movie is a not talk about. If you can't, I will.
Okay, because
I I
I
I was
unfortunately didn't
fully
write
ready
notes
to.
for this one because I think I forgot like halfway through and I was like, oh well,
I
guess I'm done here.
I told you as much. I am fully capable of. If I didn't watch this movie, if we just recorded yesterday before I watched it, I would have been able to do this episode. I've essentially memorized everything about this movie. I've only seen
Okay,
it like 2 times. Like,
how many
don't worry,
times?
2 or 3, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
I think 3, but and not none of them besides like at that point, none of them recently. But to cover it, it blends the there's Transformers shit going on with the there's human and Transformer shit going on. Like the liken this to the first movie, which I mean, in a lot of ways, it is similar to. You got young lad slash lass finds Bumblebee somewhere I think the intention of the first movie is supposed to be this to be a friendship, but there isn't. But at the same time, as Decepticons are just doing some sinister shit.
Mhm.
This movie begins. It's like, we're talking about this being a coming of age story. The first 5-10 minutes is just straight up entirely computer generated Transformers fucking shit up on Cybertron.
Yes, I was gonna mention that. Like, I don't know how Travis Knight and crew managed to do it, but they made a better Transformers movie, and that was like 8 or so minutes than Michael Bay made in like the 15 hours it takes to watch all of them.
Yeah, I was thinking just the first three would be like 7 hours, but yeah, it's just two more.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was a pretty exciting sequence. Like they actually have the Transformers are designed like they actually were in the 80s cartoon. But you
Well, I think I just think point is that having not seen not to like not to shame you publicly for not being a true Transformers fan, because I'm ashamed of being a Transformers fan, but
yeah.
they're not as besides Optimus, they're not as much classic like full on designs as they are modified versions of the more recent, by recent I mean 2010 2012 game designs.
Oh, interesting.
The sequence in this movie, if you besides the camera work and obviously the crispness of the models, the beginning of those scenes on Cybertron, most of the beginning, look pretty much straight out of those games.
Like
A
the
lot of
Warren
the characters,
Cybertron games or whatever.
yeah, a lot of the
Yeah.
characters have design cues from those games specifically,
Interesting.
rather than just being. I mean, that game was meant to be like edgy, gritty, realistic Transformers, but not like the Michael Bay way, in a sort of they're blocky but they're cool. So instead, they didn't take directly from the source. They took from that game, which in itself took from the source, but not to the extent of Michael Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a smart choice, because if you look at like Brawn or these names mean nothing to you, that's fine. But if you look at like Brawn or Wheeljack or Ironhide compared to like an original character screenshot and then the game character, you'll be able to tell the game it is very clearly inspired from that.
Gotcha.
So I know it's a particularly useful thing to rant on, but going into the designs when we just shit on them the entirety of the first 5 movies, I think is worth it, because they're robots. They have a bunch of joints, they have a bunch of angles, but they're not like scrap metal spikes sticking out of things. They have faces.
Mm-hmm.
They have like, even if they're not tires, they have wheels. You know?
Yeah. Also, one thing I do have to mention about this movie that does consistently throughout the movie is that the Transformers actually transform.
Well, Bumblebee does.
Well, yeah.
No, everyone else does too.
Yeah, I think most of them
On
do.
Earth.
Yeah. You
Not
see,
the
like,
ones on Cybertron mostly, but that's fine.
yeah, like the two main villains like transform a decent amount. Obviously, Bumblebee does because like that's like part of his.
Well, he does a lot,
thing.
like
Yeah.
a lot. And
Yeah.
I think the effect looks more pleasing than even. I mean, the effect in the other movies looks great. Looks great when they do it. In this movie, it's a lot smoother. It's
Yeah.
less aggressive, and I think that fits. It's not like and you're just a car. Like it's actually transforming rather than being forced into a new shape, which I mean, I guess is more realistic. But
well, I guess it's also just a way because like the Transformer sequences in like the Michael Bay movies were meant to be like this like huge giant like effect that like I guess gave like the fanboys like euphoria when they've seen. This one is more so just like a not like that's not supposed to be a huge event. It's like something that's like part of them, if you know what I mean. And since they do like
it's supposed to be more alien that way.
Yeah.
There are aliens, but they've been refocused as robots, which is nice.
More than meets the eye.
They say that in this movie. I can't remember.
I think they say
I think
they're like in disguise or something like that, or like
almost,
one of these robots
sure
like in disguise or something like that, or like maybe not like exactly, but they do say like something like in disguise or whatever.
Like I should remember if they do, but I just figured if something struck out to you. Yeah. I guess while we're on the robot, because a lot of the movie is the character work with the non-robot characters. We can go over the robot characters. We have Bumblebee himself, and I'm sure even I was pretty surprised, I'll admit, when I saw this movie. It's like Optimus is shooting down generic seekers. Bumblebee drives in, and he's just talking.
Yeah, voiced by Dylan O'Brien, nonetheless.
Oh my yeah, that's fucking it's hilarious.
I mean, like it's
And,
not bad. I mean, that's probably the voice I would have most expected from Bumblebee, like
he's
the
not
like a
like
young
a
kiddish
kid.
voice. Yeah,
He's kid, it's young, but it's not a kid voice. And it's not
yeah.
the crusty British man.
Whatever the fuck was going on in the first movie and the fifth
Sorry,
movie.
Mark Ryan. You did great as Jetfire in Lockdown, but don't ever think about when you voice Bumblebee ever again. But yeah, he starts talking, and I'm like, whoa, because that is like the game. In the first of those games, Bumblebee has a voice and
Mhm.
talks. He looks pretty much, you don't need, it doesn't really matter if you look it up or not, but he looks almost exactly like the game model, except for the head, which is the Bayverse design.
Mhm.
And he sounds pretty similar too. So it's the normal Transformer story, and this is a staple with pretty much every medium. Is they're on the planet of Cybertron, torn by war, and you see it, and it looks both adequately torn by war, but also livable. Like what the fuck was Cybertron in the first and the third movie? It looked like hell.
Yeah, they it just what it wasn't actual fucking civilization. It was just like like
No
metal.
wallpaper
Yeah,
desktop
yeah.
shit.
It was just metal hell, basically.
But now you see like buildings, towers, roads. Oh man, people might have lived here once, and then the Decepticons blow it up essentially. So I mean that's part of the course. But we
Mhm.
saw a little crumb of what it might have looked like, and then Optimus Prime, and it is Peter Cullen's Optimus Prime, and he doesn't threaten anyone's life in the same way. He doesn't decapitate anyone.
Well, I mean, I guess he wasn't the
He just
focus, so he
shoots,
didn't have the
punches,
chance
and
to. But yeah.
actually Bumblebee decapitates someone in the beginning. I think he kicks his head at someone else. That's Bumblebee. That's not Optimus.
Yeah, something like that.
So
For,
you have most of the main Autobot cast from like the classic G1 style media, and they're like, "Oh, we have to go find new planets," because Cybertron is pretty fucked. Almost every universe, almost every show, movie, the planet's fucked. They have to leave, and they showed that without drawing it out in the same way that the like Generation One did, that the original series had a whole episode devoted to that. But like in like 5 minutes, showing them we're losing, we have to leave, and then they leave. I think is a perfectly good setup.
mhm. Also, I was gonna say
Concise.
I do find it kind of odd how like pretty much all the Transformers like have like cool names. At least like I'm assuming they do. And
Yeah.
then you have like B127.
B-127.
Yeah, it's like they didn't bother giving Bumblebee a cool name. At least
I imagine
originally.
he was just a fucking like scout. He's not even really a I mean, I guess this movie tries to prove that he is, but I like the idea that the Autobots are so screwed that they're like, who do we have? We have a bunch of nameless drones. Fuck. Like, who do we have? Carl 83. That's a fun idea, but then he's named Bumblebee, and it's like it's equally as dumb as just how that being his name. Like it doesn't matter. All Transformers names are dumb.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's dumb, but there's just something I thought was funny. Also,
No, no, that's a good point.
yeah. Also, this is just basically the Superman story, at least in the beginning, where they send off like one of their people to Earth, like save or I guess like to save their species or like save
To
mankind
find a
as well. I
place where they
guess.
can hide.
Yeah.
They're
Uh,
refugees.
yeah. But I guess also you can call Superman a refugee, but I just like thought it was a pretty obvious comparison to like what they were doing.
It's
Uh,
yeah, oh, yeah. It's a lot more like that in this movie because this movie they're like take the escape pods and fuck off. But in the original show they have a big ass ship, so all of them just land on Earth.
that probably would have made more
This
sense.
movie, it's only well, Bumblebee landing there early. They had to do that because they weren't sure if it was going to be a prequel to the first movie, and we'll get into that, especially when we
Yeah,
get to
I want to get into that later and how like they retcon this being part of the Bayverse, but I guess yeah, we'll get into that later.
mostly with John Cena's stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know it was about Johnson. Okay, yeah, we'll get into that. So yeah, Bumblebee lands on Earth, and he's greeted by and he's greeted kindly, not really, by John Cena's character, whose name is I have it pulled up. I have it
Yeah,
pulled up.
I just
Uh,
know him as the this door my way guy.
Agent Burns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is hilariously a name name reference. Like Sam was a reference in name to an original character. This guy was a reference in name to a fucking like toddler show character. No
Toddler show
connection, but
character.
Rescue Bots. It's
Okay, I didn't know
all the
that.
characters.
That's
Like most of the
interesting.
characters are called Burns. They just keep reusing names. I don't know why.
Yeah. Um, I say I love John Cena's as an actor, even though in most things he's not very good, other than like Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. And this I can't really call him like that good, but like he was a very entertaining part of the movie.
He's fucking funny as hell in this
Yeah,
movie.
he has like the most quotable lines, like as you said, like "There's a door in my way."
That's my favorite line.
Yeah.
Then second favorite line. Second favorite line.
Oh,
We'll
what was the other one he said? I should have wrote down. Oh God, you have it.
it's like they literally call themselves Decepticons and set up any red flags.
Yeah, that. He's
That's
probably
the
the
first
most.
fun fact. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that's the first time anyone's ever remarked on that in the entire series. I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong.
yeah.
That's hilarious,
Their
like
names are
as an
fucking
idea.
Decepticons. Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yeah,
This,
as you're saying with the plot, he lands on Earth in a military base while John Cena, and we get a very comedic scene where he shoots one of his squad mates with a paintball gun a lot. It's like, haha. It's like kind of, it's very MCU
mm-hmm.
funny. This movie does have some MCU like laugh audience moments, but it also has just like one-liners that it balances semi cringe humor with just actually being funny sometimes. I would
Yeah.
say
This movie's humor is definitely fairly solid. Definitely way better than any Michael Bay movies, which rely on like
national, mostly family
Bumblebee
friendly.
pisses on John Turturro, or you
Hey,
see dogs
hey!
fuck, or what have you. But like this one was actually just like actual jokes written by a human being with a
Yeah,
decent sense
which
of
was not a
humor.
nice change of pace.
Yeah,
Truly,
I guess it does make sense because like I guess they were trying to kind of make this like kind of
mass
franchise
appeal.
this like
Because
outside of the Michael Bay movies. So I
we've
guess
gone it ends. Like, who the fuck are the movies? The five movies actually?
I don't know.
We've gone like
That's like the world's
teenagers.
biggest question. It's not for
I know.
children. It's not for adults who grew up with the Transformers. It's
It's
for no
that
one.
means it's for teenagers, but they don't think the robots are cool. But so they're going to see a movie about robots without robots, not for the robot. Like this movie is for folks of all ages. It's for kids because it's simple and understanding, funny. Robot do silly things. It's good for teenagers because they can relate to the characters. It's good for say old heads
Old hits.
because it's like a nostalgic '80s movie.
Yeah, this is definitely
I,
like captures the audience of like an MCU movie. And while obviously like that formula is a bit overdone by now, I think it works fairly well for a Transformers movie.
Yeah, especially because you just some levity, some fucking happiness, some joy for once
Yeah.
to see. I mean, like you see, like John Cena's character, he's shooting his from the paintball gun viciously, but it's like it's jovial. They're having a quote unquote good time.
Mhm.
You know, if that was Michael Bay, he would have just shot the guy with a fucking real gun or something. But one thing, and he lands, the John Cena and his military trooper are like, "Hey, what the hell is that? Get it?" And then, and then, I think it's admittedly a little strange. I think this movie generally has very solid pacing for being like an Iron Giant ripoffy movie.
Mhm.
That's one of the only issues I had with the original Iron Giant. The pacing felt off to me. But I admit, after the incredible Cybertron intro, they land. There's a little scuffle with the military guys, and it's military guys, but not in a Michael Bay way, in a kind of in like an '80s way.
Yeah.
Like the
If
military
Michael Bay
guys.
made this, the
Sorry,
military would have taken up like half of the movie, like they did in the
no.
first movie. Yeah.
In this movie, thinking of it as an '80s movie, the military kind of fills the same role as like the mayoral offices in Ghostbusters. It's an institution that needs to be worked around instead of an infallible force that the movie must center around.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But
Also, their
yeah,
motives and their discussions make sense and aren't just like a shit ton of just bullshit military jargon that you don't care about and
battle
shouldn't even be in the
groups,
movie. Yeah, like they get what they have to
battle
do
groups.
done, and they don't like overshow the military, which was definitely a nice change of pace, as we've said many times
And
compared to the
also, and
Michael Bay
also,
movies.
just when you're watching the movie to show that the military aren't going to be this impenetrable bastion of hope, Bumblebee gets cornered by them, like, "Hey, stand down." Bumblebee's like, "Hey, I'm with you." Which, I mean, they speak English in this movie. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think it's
Also,
easier than
just
having
an
them.
aside, can you hear the fireworks going on in the background for me?
I can't.
I guess good, because I'm
Currently,
assuming
I
the
have my
fans.
AC on, but
Yeah.
the one moment that doesn't feel right to me, like it's kind of weird and makes me wonder how they could have done it otherwise, is that Bumblebee's cornered. So Decepticon just fucking shows up and nukes all of them,
Yep.
even though there's no indication there's supposed to be Decepticons on Earth, and we've never seen it before.
Yeah, that is a bit odd. When you like actually think about it.
Now, I've seen this movie enough, and I've thought about it enough. I think that action scene is cool because it's one thing that they took kind of from the animated, like, no, not just, no, the show animated, the show that's called animated, is that the Autobots are really fucking short and the Decepticons are really fucking tall.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a scene where Bumblebee is this tiny little guy fighting this mammoth jet man, and he's kicking his ass. Like, that's what would happen
Yeah.
mostly.
Well, I kind of assume that because like Bumblebee is like, I guess, known for being like one of the smaller Transformers, at least in comparison to like
Scrappier.
Optimus Prime. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
he was the
Most
some of this movie are definitely more menacing than a lot of them are in the other
the
movies on their
characters,
sheer
most of
size.
them.
Yeah.
Even
Do you
this
know what?
guy.
What were the
Oh,
names of like
sorry.
the main two again? I forgot.
Oh, we're almost there. We're almost there, Jacob.
Okay.
I'm almost ready to go back to the characters. I just want to get over this guy because to make a point about how the characters are done in this movie. This fucking random jet man who in the first trailer everyone's like, "Oh, it's Starscream." It's not Starscream. It's just a name slap of someone else. It's just, for all intents and purposes, it's just Jobber number one. But even this guy, with his like 2 minutes of screen time and like 3 lines of dialogue, it's like he's a Decepticon, but he's very like policeman like. He's interrogating Bumblebee. You have erred against the Decepticon supremacy. Like, this guy doesn't last fucking 2 minutes, and he gets some character stuff.
Yeah. I like the
In the other
line that was
movies,
like,
yeah,
Bumblebee was like, "I'll never talk," and then he'll be like, "Oh, well, I'll fix that," and then
I'll
he
make that
tears out his
permanent.
voice box.
Yeah, that's a pretty Chad move. And I also just like Bumblebee sees him and he tries running away, and the guy just fucking barrels him on the ground. Did you think you could hide?
Yeah.
Like, that's a fucking Chad way to scare someone.
It
Respect.
is pretty odd how actually never mind. I was gonna say like how like he just like shows up and then just leaves, but like no, but like he gets fucking blown up. So
He gets blown up.
yeah.
And I'll say this movie is pretty violent when it comes to Transformers. Like, he explodes,
Yeah.
but it's not like viscera flying everywhere. It's like machinery exploding, like in a way a car would, or I guess a plane. So
Yeah, for sure.
he gets his voice box ripped out, gets his ass kicked. He hunkers down, scans the beetle, time skip, and then we meet the character. Meet Charlie.
Charlie Watson. I remember her last name.
I know that's how great she is.
Yeah, that's how competent she is. It's such more say.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So she's pretty much like just like I guess the average like high school loner who's like she's about to turn 18. Her dad died from uh as we find out later, her dad died from a heart attack, and she's now living with her mom and her new boyfriend, also her brother, who okay, I should say, uh her brother was played by the same kid who played Greg Heffley in the Fourth Diary of Green movie,
Oh my
which is like
god,
my least favorite movie of all time. So
I did
like that
not
just
know that.
annoyed me the entire time.
No,
Like,
the kid is annoying. Don't know. No,
yeah,
that's
I
all
mean
right.
like it wasn't like necessarily his performance, even though like he was kind of annoying, but it was like that just bugged me every time he was on screen. I was like, "Fuck you, Greg Heffley."
I didn't have that bias. An interesting thing is that you meet Charlie and she's doing normal 80s things. She's brushing her teeth wackily.
Yeah, listening to
And
her
she goes
Walkman.
downstairs and you meet the family, and it's setting up a fairly obvious thing. The mother is sort of, like, airheaded. She doesn't really understand Charlie's problems. The boyfriend is trying to be as good like a stepdad as possible, but he's kind of clueless. And the brother just is a brother and just annoys the shit out of her for no reason.
Mhm.
So you start with a character that you already have some sympathy with, because even though she's not in a horrible situation, it's in a situation that is not not the best mentally, especially because she's getting over the death of her father.
Yep.
Like the emotional core of this movie is fairly emotional because it's like real. It's not like, oh man, I hate that iconic Decepticon shitstorm squashed my fucking uncle in Nicaragua or something. Like it's just like a real thing that would happen. Her character arc is centralized on real things, but intensified and changed by the Transformers adventure, which I think is the pretty much the perfect way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if it was literally. Oh, I was gonna say, imagine if it was something stupid like what I said, and she had some. The Transformers were here for thousands of years, and they fucking killed her dad. That would be idiotic.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, I guess like in some of those movies, like
I'm over exaggerating,
yeah,
but
no, I mean like there's like some movies where I guess like kind of like when there's like a tragedy that happens because of the threat they face, but I feel like in like a Transformers movie, it would just be like pretty stupid and quite and wouldn't make the audience relate to the characters. So it definitely
yeah,
won't work here.
and they may try to make it relatable, and I would say it succeed. I mean, I'm not a girl in the '80s, but I don't know. Maybe I know what it's like after watching Bumblebee.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know what it feels like. Yeah, it really makes you feel like a girl in the '80s. But
Makes you
yeah,
feel like Optimus Prime.
anyway, so she works at like a state fair or like an amusement park, and she has a
Yeah,
pretty shitty job making corn dogs and whatever. And we find out at that the kid who like who lives next to her and also works at the amusement park, who he likes her. His name is Memo. I don't know if that's his actual name or not, but his name is Memo.
they just. I don't think he has a name besides that. We just have to take it at face value.
Yeah, he gives me like podcast from Ghostbusters
I was
Afterlife
gonna say
energy.
podcast too.
Yeah.
You're beating me to all these points. Okay, podcast is dumber. Memo is meant to be like the weird side character '80s name. Like I can't think of any particulars. I know there are examples of like the side character having a slightly off kilter name compared to the protagonist. So I'm like, oh, just name him Memo. It's vaguely musical.
Yeah. uh I think he's I don't I think he's pretty funny just like in the sense of like he's just like a goofy age character who just like who's really awkward around Charlie and
Literally me.
yeah, he's just literally me.
So
It's the
I
best way
had
of
to
it.
say it once.
Yeah. I guess that's the best way to say it. But like I guess as the
It,
movie
it,
goes on, they grow closer and ooh, they hint at a
closer.
relationship and that like a lot of 80s movies do. But I feel like for the most part, just like they have like a nice friendship and dichotomy throughout the movie. It goes from like
Yeah, they play
yeah.
decent well off each other because he is a dork first and foremost. Also, fun fact: I know you probably didn't see it in the movie. There's a deleted scene where he admits to being a fan of GoBots, which were essentially the only other
Yeah, the rip-off
retail line of
Transformers.
transforming to a not technically rip-offs. I think some of them might have I think some of them predate Transformers actually, but that also grounds him as a nerd because even in the '80s he liked GoBots, and also that GoBots are fictional but Transformers are real, which is fucking hysterical.
Yeah, I guess
Like
that
fuck
is pretty
you,
funny.
you don't get to be real GoBots.
Yeah, where's the GoBots live action movie, Michael Bay?
I want to see Psykill in HD. No, but I like his character, and I what I originally took as a point of contention against him is that by the end of the movie, when like the super like the evil plot is underway and everyone has to go to the dock to stop the Decepticons, he does literally nothing. And I'm like, he could have done more. And then I think about it, what would he have done?
Yeah, he's just a
He's
guy.
fucking useless.
Yeah.
Like I love him, but he has no skills. He has like he has a personality. I'm not like he's not no skills, no personality. He's not dead weight, but in the context of the fucking world saving adventure, he kind of is.
Hmm.
So I like that at the end he doesn't get to do anything heroic. I think it's more realistic.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Um, so I guess we'll continue a bit. So we find out that that Haley Steinfeld or that Charlie really wants to have a car, even though I both her parents or her mother can't afford it and doesn't want to give it to her. I guess. And we get a pretty funny slash sad scene. When it's her birthday, and her mother gives her a bike helmet, just because He's like, "Oh, I saw like all these things where you crack your head open. You have to wear it from now on." And also her stepdad or her mom's boyfriend gives her a book on how to smile more. It's like
Yeah,
just a very
that was that's funny.
very half-assed and like basically just forced, like the gift more so for that for him than more so than her, just to like get get her a better personality
I,
and make her and
I saw
make
it
him feel
more
better.
as he was trying, but he's just so out of touch and stupid that that's what he came up with. I
I
think he
guess
was
that
being
would probably
genuine.
make more. That probably makes more sense.
Because
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, like, oh, she's down in the dump. I don't know how much about her actual father's death he knows about. So he's just like, why are you down in the dumps, old chum? Like, he gave me that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
That
I guess that makes sense.
the
Yeah.
fake Gyllenhaal, fake Gyllenhaal. I'm a
Fake.
fucking genius. I'm sorry.
He. Yeah. 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 Why didn't Jake Gyllenhaal get the role? He would have been perfect.
Actually, after seeing Ambulance, he would have been so good as that
Yeah.
dad for the 15 line. 15.
We
That's too
saw that
many.
like that like
Or
damn like the damn smile like with no teeth that he gives.
oh my god,
Yeah.
yeah, the Ricardo one. But
Yeah.
so that instigates that initiates that she's always down in the dumps for realistic reasons. Not she's an average kid that no one understands. I'm not going to go the rest of the Fairly Odd Parents theme, but then she wants a car as opposed to just riding around a moped, having to schlep her brother back and forth. She goes to weirdly enough, a very similar scene to the fourth movie where she just finds some old man who she buys car parts for because she wants a car.
Hmm.
She has her dad's car in the garage. She's trying to renovate it. That's her. It's not her character arc, but that is one of the driving forces of her character arc in terms of tangible things to get done.
Yeah.
Is that she's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to, it's the last memory of my dad, and that's why she wants a car. That specifically she wants to fix that car. He goes to the old guy, and then like she finds the Bumblebee Volkswagen in there, and then she's like, "Oh, can I have this? If you could fix it up." She does, and then the movie, I guess, begins proper.
Yeah. An actual Volkswagen, by the way, not like a fucking like $500,000 Chevrolet.
Fake concept Camaro.
Yeah.
I always find it fun because obviously Bumblebee was a Volkswagen, but he's always been okay. The original toy was based on a figure that was supposed to be a penny racer, which is essentially a penny-sized, compact version of a real car. So every time he's been a Volkswagen up until this point, he's been like a fucking like a fake car, like a squished car. So in this movie, he is a Volkswagen at long last, but he's also a real car. So I don't know. I thought there was something there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for you, that's a nice closing to his Bumblebee's
He
design
finally
arc.
gets to be a real car,
Yeah.
as opposed to like a fake penny racer car.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, shortly after, Haley Steinfeld gets Bumblebee, brings her to the garage, and he sprouts to life. And since he lost his memory, doesn't have a voice, he basically just becomes like he's just a kid like similar to like in Transformers 4 and some other Transformers movies. He acts like a kid, but like this person like a kid in the sense of like almost like a dog or like
Like a toddler. Like,
yeah
yeah,
or
not. Was that?
oh, sorry. I thought you said something. Yeah, it's like almost like a toddler, like a dog, or even like the Iron Giant from the Iron Giant to an extent.
I
Uh,
wonder. I wonder if that was an inspiration.
oh yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, you kind of see the arc of how like
Now it's fucking.
they're both like kind of taking care of each other in like to a certain extent, and how uh Charlie teaches Bumblebee human things, and Bumblebee like allows her to cope with the death of her father and just like become like a happier
Gives
person
her
as a
support.
result.
Yeah, also
Yeah.
like literally in that she has a car, and but also that she has like a friend.
Mm.
And then in this movie, it's like, oh yeah, Iron Giant, character meets robot, they find friendship. It's not just she finds a friendship. At that point, only friendship. which is
Yeah, because
kind of
we
sad.
yeah
Like, you
we
know?
in some like brief scenes earlier we find out like just about girls make fun of her for like no reason basically,
Yeah.
and there's like
Oh, the
this like
Mean
hot
Girls are so
guy
fucking funny.
who just like who I guess like back who makes like backhand like shitty comments to her, and then like later in the movie we see uh her him basically force her to do something she doesn't want to do. Uh,
Or
but yeah,
try.
she's just like basically a loser and has no friends. But like when she meets Bumblebee, they form a nice bond, which is something that like
An
the
actual
the
friendship.
yeah the
God
Michael Bay
forbid.
movies really fucking failed at, considering they're basically trying to do the same thing.
All three movies tried to propagate the Bumblebee and Sam to each other. I don't believe that. I never believe that. In this movie, they're actually friends. They have adventures. They take in fun. They teach each other things. They even though Bumblebee is effectively mute, Charlie does her best to empathize with him and figure out what he's been through. And as the movie goes on and he regains part of his memory and unlocks some of his Optimus Prime data logs they have, she begins to understand that he's fucked up too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like throughout pretty much the rest of the movie, we see the relationship grow, and uh, and it's basically just like constantly cuts between us seeing Charlie and Bumblebee's relationship grow, and then like some of the military stuff, and then the Decepticon stuff, which eventually goes into the military stuff, and I think like and because there's like way less uh there's way less of a what's the word, like the I guess I'll just say like since the plot is way less complicated and you need to cut between as many parts of it, it makes the movie pace better result of it. Like I remember like I paused the movie at like maybe like the hour 20 mark and I was like, oh, we're already like getting to the third act. And, like I because like which is like so very surprising because in the Michael Bay movies I was like fucking praying for them to end so quickly, and then like when I originally think they're about to end, we're only like barely over an hour through the movie. So it was nice seeing something that actually held my attention and kept
And
me
it's also
entertained
not
throughout.
nearly long.
Yeah,
It's only like 2 hours.
yeah. Thank
It's good
God.
movie length. But on that, we get the meeting of Bumblebee and Charlie, and then a little bit after Memo and Charlie. We also meet the Decepticons, and even in the beginning, you see all the iconic Decepticons: Shockwave, Soundwave, Starscream, all the fucking Seekers, except for Megatron. Important. We'll get to that later, like I alluded to earlier. But the Decepticons in this movie are just new characters they made up.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, the names. I think the name Dropkick has been kicking around. Fuck, I'm too good at that today. But that name's been used for other characters, hell, other movie characters, I think. But they essentially just created character archetypes to be Decepticons. I think it was a good idea. So when this is a Transformers movie, yes, but it's just a Bumblebee movie. It's the robot Bumblebee and his part of the Transformers story. The beginning, you see the big picture, everyone on both sides fighting for their lives. So if you're on Earth and like, oh shit, Shockwave and fucking Thunderwing, just everyone showing up, it would probably it would be like an MCU movie. Like if you're watching Iron Man 3 and then Thanos show kind of thing. Having a smaller villain for a story, I think, is generally a good idea. And these are smaller villains in the sense that they're not. I mean, they are going for world domination, but not like in the Megatron. I'm literally going to blow up the way.
Yeah, I
In
was
in
gonna
a
say
in a
that.
more we have to do what we do for the cause way.
Yeah.
These characters, I think, have a very power. They have like two intros in the movie, but I think they're both really funny for different ways. The first one you might not agree with, but I'll go into that.
Is it the one when they're like on Saturn and like
Yeah,
yeah?
it cut that. My friend is Cliff Jumper, who has become a joke in Transformers because this is the second time in a row he's showed up in something and been cut in half within 3 minutes.
Yeah, that seems absolutely
The,
brutal. Right,
the
and that was
second the
I thought
second time,
what was the
it's
first
one
time?
character, Transformers Prime. He's
Uh
played by Dwayne Johnson, and then he gets fucking cut in half.
you
It's so funny that they're
could
like,
never do that
we need
now.
to kill an Autobot. Should we make up another one? No, no, no. Let's use Cliff Jumper again. They're breaking his ass. It's
Basically,
awesome.
where it's like, and I like
And
how
that's
he's like just like instead of like actually saying anything to this episode, he's just like, I am Cliff Jumper of the Autobot regime, and I will,
yeah.
yeah,
He's on like autopilot.
yeah.
Which
Yeah, I thought this was
it
really
also
funny.
and of course they chose him because he's essentially the same model as Bumblebee. I know that's why, but I just think it's funny that they're keeping up this trend of just fucking killing this poor guy. I can't wait to see him show up in something else and get cut in half again. But it introduces the characters, and it's really violent because he just gets bisected up the middle. But it's the Decepticons doing that. They would be doing that, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
So you
not
meet
for this
them,
pro.
yeah. You can go into the characters because after they can go with them landing and their characters if you want.
Well, like, do you want to talk about like the scene where they land on Earth and we see like the hillbilly couple?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah,
You want to
uh,
keep that one?
yeah. So like we like when we see the two Decepticons go to Earth, we are introduced to that scene with a hillbilly couple who's like who's like the wife storms out and she's like and she's like, why are you leaving me? And then she's like, oh cause you tried to fuck my sister or and he's like
Something
what?
better,
And
but
it's like unsuccessfully.
successfully.
Yeah, that is kind of like a Michael Bay line. That's like
That
there's
is
like the
that is
Michael
the
Bay
most Michael
character.
Bay sequence. That sequence
Yeah,
is fucking dark
yeah, and we see
because
them
it
like
starts off.
argue like a fucking shitty couple. And he's like, oh, you spent like all of our money on this fucking car instead of a house or
A
something.
sick, tricked out car,
Yeah, and then
and then Decepticon.
like the Decepticons land, he's like, oh, don't hit my car, don't hit my car, and the first one doesn't land there, and then when the second one lands, he fucking like, explodes like the entire like bar or like building
Gas
that
station,
yeah
destroying the car.
yeah, and
It's,
and then they're just like fucking there, and now the Decepticons are there, and he's like, oh well, like where can we go to blah blah blah, and then like oh my god, what did they say? Oh, what was the last line they said? Oh my god, I so regret writing this down now. There's like something like really stupid, and then they just fucking leave. Wait,
oh
oh
yeah,
no! They fucking turn one of them into goo. For
yeah. Drop
yeah
kicks goo gun.
yeah. There's like a goo gun that what they one of the Decepticons shoots at the guy, and then he fucking turns into cum basically, and then they just leave.
He goes, I like the way they pop.
it's it's so great.
It's really fucked up, but it's funny
Yeah.
because you just watch a horrible person get liquefied. Like in the other movies, that would be like normal Tuesday. Like that would just be a normal thing that happens. In this movie, it's weird and off-putting, but it's also like, oh, the Decepticons will kill people for no reason. And
Yeah.
I think that even there sets up their characters because they have like legit defined, maybe not the most extensive, but they have characters. Dropkick is like the short king, like really, he's like the scrappy dude. He's just like, I want to kill something. I want to get goo. I want to burn this planet to cinders. And then Shatter's like, hey, easy buddy. We have to earn our favor. We're Decepticons. We can deceive them.
We just sep.
It's a fun dichotomy, I would say. It's kind of like a fucked up Team Rocket thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So soon after they land, they meet up with the military and John Cena, and then they're like, "Oh, we'll work with you if we can find B-127." Then they're like, and then John Cena's like, "I want to fucking kill you guys." And then there's like a scientist who's like, "No, no, no, we should like study with them and learn their technology and shit." And then
That's a good impression of him. That's what he sounds like.
yeah, oh, I didn't even try, but like yeah, but and then they're like, all right, we'll do it for like a little bit. And then I guess we're not exactly talking order here, but like then spoiler alert, they after John Cena says that oh they're Decepticons, is that not a red flag to you? They decept them and use them and then fucking kill them, and then the scientist who I
They
had
con them.
yeah who I apparently had a really good impression of died, or like they turned him into goo,
Yeah,
and
yeah. You speed running this section, but it's both entertaining that they would be like, oh, let's work with these guys because it is Cold War, and there is that element to the military government
Right.
side
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's like, oh, we need the technology. It's weirdly very Transformers 3. We need technology for the Cold War, for the space race, but not as awkwardly handled.
Yeah, it was more just like something where it was just like, oh, but if we don't do it, then the Russians will
It's
get
for
to it first.
building. Yeah, it builds the it builds the world, but it adds the time frame, makes it more believable for the American government to be like, oh yeah. And interestingly, it does play into the first movie where they said that we use Transformers technology to reverse engineer technology. They literally said the Decepticons link up to the machinery, and it's implied they create the internet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It took me a
Like the
few. It took me a few
interconnected web
years
of
to really
information.
notice that. Yeah. So it is stupid, at least in keeping with the stupidity of the first movie.
Even though
But
I'm
it's
like pretty
also
sure the
like,
internet existed technically before that, but I digress.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a stretch, but it's just like, oh, why don't we make the Decepticons working with the government have some like short term? Well, I mean, it's long term effect, but like how we like sprinkle in a little extra detail. That's what they ended up going with, which I think is fine. It's no stupider than Decepticons just fucking being on Earth like the beginning. So
Yeah. So I also like a large part of this movie is just uh Charlie and Bumblebee and eventually Memo just like fucking around and getting into mischief. So we like see like them we see them like fucking like TP and egg one of the girl's house
that was the
after
main mean girl. Yeah.
yeah, after they went to like some they went to like some like cliff and like much like their high school like
Oh,
peers or whatever.
I think that's one of the most important character moments in the movie. We should not
Yeah, okay,
gloss
yeah,
over
yeah, yeah.
that
Okay, we'll
character.
discuss it. So like they're like
That
Charlie and Memo were on like a thrill ride with Bumblebee.
borderline date.
Yeah, borderline date. And they go to like this cliff where a bunch of their high school peers are, and we see that Chad guy from the beginning who we get
Never
like a
wears a
hint
shirt.
of that Charlie might like, but like it's never really like a huge detail.
She thinks he's attractive, but
Yeah.
recognizes he's a douche in the normal '80s way.
Yeah. So we see him like he's like gonna dive off this cliff, and then like Bumblebee being
You're a
the
pro diver,
yeah
Watson. you
yeah,
know,
and Bumblebee being the dick he is like made like use his door to make Charlie like volunteer, uh,
and
because
when he
like
plays the
he
touch
found out that
from
like
the original
she's a
movie,
diver.
that's the, that's the Soy Man moment.
Yeah.
When Boney plays "You Got the Touch," even though it's not even the best
Yeah.
song in that. It's not even like the third best song in that movie, the
Yeah.
original one. But it's like that's the Transformers, "You Got the Touch." That's I know that from my childhood, and it's meant to be like hyping up like, oh man, she's gonna conquer fear. But then she ultimately is like, it's not worth appeasing these guys, and Memo suggests that, but she comes to that conclusion and realizes she's just too structured with grief about it to go for it. So she ends up embarrassed, but she solidifies her own decision in that. I think it's a good like an actually good character moment. Like yeah, it's derailed a bit by the member berry of the music, but it's also pretty good for being subversive. Like it's playing the music, she has to do it, and then she doesn't.
Hmm.
I think it's effective in its own right.
Yeah. And then after that, we see like basically just like the Mean Girls from Mean Girls just making fun of her for like no reason. Basically, other than I guess just be bullies and
Haha, you have oh yeah,
your
go
dad
back to your
died. Fuck
daddy. Like
you.
they literally said like jump off a cliff. Like they're not just mean, they're like menaces.
Yeah.
So but they're like, we have to get back at them, and then they go to egg the house. And I think that's one of the most
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a very
Digestively
80s movie
wholesome.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where Bumblebee's like, he's like, what do I do? He takes the eggs, he slathers them over the car instead of throwing them. Then he gets too excited, he destroys the car.
Yeah.
He tries. I actually one of the bit I really like is he tries to like TP the house. Bumblebee throws it the same trajectory, but it goes like fucking 18 miles in the wrong direction. Yeah, like that's a fun little stupid thing. It's like, oh yeah, he's a transformer. Like you can throw that long,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, so it is revenge, and they go a bit too far in his little mini police chase, even, which is a fun, albeit fairly. Actually, Actually, I have to think about that scene. Anything else you want to touch on before I get there?
No, I was gonna like, say how like it was kind of cool how they like incorporated like some of how like they like, basically like instead of like actually like turning having Bumblebee transform throughout that car chase, they like kind of like had like his like arms extend and like hang on like the ledges and like shit like that. But like that being said, it's just like the, they Travis Knight can just not do car chases like Bay. Bay is like the master of car chases, and like it just wasn't as entertaining as like something
Oh
like
yeah, but it was also just it was essentially just like a little hooligan joyride.
yeah.
I
So
think the
I
point of it is that the two of them are growing closer together. Bumblebee is like partially transforming. That's from the animated series as well. That's something he did. So it makes it's a fun. It's not like a insanely good car chase, but it's a neat little keep the kids from falling asleep in the seats sort of moment.
yeah, sure.
But after that, another thing I guess pacing wise is kind of it makes sense for the structure of the movie, but it's quite abrupt. They get through that car chase. They just keep driving out on a road, and then they just run into in broad daylight like a fucking 1,000 military truck.
Yeah.
Did you notice that they just appear?
Yeah, I did notice that. It was kind of
Them being
pretty sudden.
in the town was because the Decepticons tracked Bumblebee down. I get that. Being right there is like that's a. I can take plot contrivances. Usually, I don't hate these movies as much as most people, and that's probably why I can deal with the plot contrivances, not anything else. But
Hmm.
they're just directly where the protagonists are.
Hmm.
Like no setup, no. There's setup, but it's just boom. Like there's no time to react to it.
Yeah, it was very
Maybe it was the
sudden.
point, but he gets the movie going and he gets near the third act. So I'm not like, oh, I'm really mad that that happened. No, it's just it was a little out of the blue,
Yeah, I agree.
pacing wise. But then, after saying, the third act begins. They capture Bumblebee, a la first movie, because that motherfucker just can't stop getting kidnapped. Just really can't. And that's
Yeah.
about the time that John Cena's like, oh, the Decepticons are probably up to something. And that's where, did you notice the cameo?
Uh,
The guy that said that he was talking to, that Burns was talking to.
was it the like the his like higher up like military officer, or was it?
No, it was the young like lieutenant guy he was talking to, curly hair.
Oh, no, I did not notice. Who was it?
It was Simmons.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Oh, I gotta look this up. Oh,
and, and like that's like a very neat thing, but it
oh
also
wait, but was it a
really
younger
puts it.
person? Oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah,
didn't notice that.
it's not John Turturro, but it's a guy
Oh, that's weird.
implying that
Yeah,
that became Sector 7, or would have if they decided to keep the storyline like that.
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
That's
That's kind of
that's what
weird.
I was talking about earlier about the continuity. Because we'll take a break before we get to the third act to go about continuity. Because this movie was envisioned as a prequel, just direct prequel, but
Yeah.
clearly something changed because the beginning is pretty fine. I'm okay. Them leaving Cybertron. They said they did that. Bumblebee being on Earth. Well, it contradicts five, but five contradicts everything, so it can go fuck itself. But it's supposed to be like canon the first movie continuity that he's there.
Mhm.
But and that's also not something that's there, but something that's not there. At the beginning, you have all the Decepticons except Megatron. Why would Megatron not be there? Because and at some version of the script, he was probably still at Hoover Dam.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Cause like he's
Why
supposed to
would
be
he
there for
not be
like
on Cybertron? Because he
decades.
fucked
Yeah.
off.
Mm.
And Sector 7 being played in there, and at the very if you watch this movie up until a certain point, it can almost work as a sort of prequel until the very end. But it's weird to see that the original idea might have been a more defined prequel, and I'm kind of glad it wasn't. So it doesn't need to
Yeah.
like you don't need to be like, what do I need to fill in between this movie and the first movie that doesn't contradict? Well, these movies don't care about contradicting each other, but like it would be nice to not have as much of that.
Hmm.
So now that it's in its own universe, it seems to be they can just do whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's for the better.
It's pretty interesting how I guess like now they're basically just making their own like ever since the Bumblebee movies are canon, they're making like their own like Transformers continuity out of like spin-offs because now we had Bumblebee, which is a spin-off just including about Bumblebee, and next year we're getting the Rise of the Beast movie, which is about like Beast Wars and shit. Which
Well,
like
it's Beast Wars, but that's supposed to be a mainline type movie.
yeah, which but like
It
that doesn't include it's not, it like at least Optimus Prime and like the ones that you generally know are main character are going to be main characters of that one. So I guess it is kind of like interesting how they're I mean, I'm assuming that the Rise of the Beast movies is going to be better than the Bay movies because they have a probably
I
more
hope
competent
so.
director and screenwriter.
Oh God, I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, same guy did Creed 2, and I like Creed 2. But like, anyway,
Creed is pretty fun.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it is kind of interesting how just like I guess the movies that were like supposed to like start make this like or have this like epic saga of robots fucking destroying each other and all that bullshit just doesn't matter anymore. It's just like just like these nice fun little movies with the robots.
More fun, at
Yeah.
least. I mean, there's still people getting decapitated, sliced in half, exploded a few times, but it's not as graphic and it's not as malicious.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
Yeah.
it treats the characters as characters, which is nice on the human and robot side,
Mm-hmm.
which is something they barely did. So
Yeah.
I think we're at the third act, which honestly, there's not much specific about the third act because most of the character stuff is done, besides one or two scenes, and most of it's just action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's
That's
definitely like
where
way more tame than any of the Michael Bay movies, but that's not a bad thing because you can generally it's definitely a lot easier to follow what's happening because there's only like three Transformers fighting.
and they're
Um,
all bright colors
yeah,
and big shapes. It's nice. Like
yeah,
if this was the Bay movies, Bumblebee would look pretty much the same as he does at the end of the movie. But then Shatter would be like gray and Dropkick would be black and have like mandibles. I do like that he has. Neither of them have normal mouths. I was didn't like that the Decepticons had like evil Satan mouths. Dropkick has like a fucking like a defibrillator, not like defibrillator, like a heart monitor mouth.
yeah,
And Shatter has like a multi-stage lip assembly. It's very
yeah,
weird and unique, and it makes them stand the the movie characters, but also non-movie characters. Because most shows, toys, online, whatever the hell's, they just have faces. So having them be in this middle ground of no face and face, it's kind of I don't know. I think it's neat.
yeah, yeah. I agree. It's like
It makes them less. You know what? It makes them less human without making them monsters.
yeah, and
That's I think the
without
big
it being like
takeaway.
uncanny, like what Gemma Chan's character was in Transformers 5.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was just gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
does a single character in this movie have a fucking mouth? Robot, I
Um,
mean?
I think like
Ironhide?
I think what
Brawn?
that girl robot in the beginning had a mouth.
Yeah,
At the very
okay, yeah. RC Brawn, Ironhide, they have mouths. That's it.
yeah. I mean, I
No
guess
one
like
else does.
I mean, there are probably some like trans like 80s Transformers fans out there who are like saying, "Oh, all the Transformers should have mouths and they should talk like human and they should have
Honestly, most of them didn't have mouths in the original. But
um
refocusing on the characters that matter, Shatter and Dropkick, that's when they officially deceive. And I think I made the comparison to Ghostbusters, but the scientist guy that goes to the Decepticon plan, I think is pretty much a perfect one and done like 80s movie fodder. He's like, no, we could use their technology and reinvent it for ourselves. We could win the Cold War.
yeah.
Like clearly just greedy and weird and like obsessive. And then the second Decepticons are like, oh, thanks for the technology so we can boost our signal, fucking instantly liquefies him. Like there's no fat in that character
Yeah,
existing.
he's like, "Oh, I'm
Let the
wrong. Go
Decepticons
save
in.
yourselves." And then he becomes calm.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And I think that's perfect. Like, I mean, it's I guess the classic Bay movie thing of like, I want everyone to die. Him dying is like, oh, okay, but like he kind of had it coming, but also, it's
Yeah, I
not
got you.
as screwy as everyone else dying in those movies, but it's also less friendly than the rest of the characters in the movie, which I think is what it needs to be. Because it's Decepticons doing stuff. They do evil shit. They kill humans. That's fine. That's their job. Deceive and destroy.
Yeah. Oh god. So
So they get to a big radio tower. That's the big set piece. Is a radio tower on a dock in like a sort of abandoned warehouse area, like very like Fast and Furious or Mission Impossible 3,
mhm.
just like big old generic set piece. So you
I,
can
I
have
I I
ships
legitimately
and
thought that there would that like they would shoot a beam into the sky like every fucking blockbuster of the 2010s. But thankfully, or I guess this might have been before, like Charlie Saved the Day, but like they didn't do the sky beam shit. So I was
they
like,
probably were going. Honestly, the first movie had a blue sky
yeah,
beam
but they might have been
in
the pioneer.
2007. You remember?
Yeah.
Bumblebee
Uh.
put a sky beam up and to get the. So they're probably do the same thing. Be lucky that Charlie won. We wouldn't have gotten another uninspired sky beam.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. I guess like the first Avengers movie is one that like really popularized it. But yeah, I guess it wasn't the first Transformers movie. Yeah. But thank God we didn't get that.
Not even. It's not. It wouldn't have even been the second. But they're transmitting the message, and obviously the sign is like, oh yeah, get your friends to get this fugitive. Which I mean, I guess Bumblebee is a fugitive, just not in the way that he's doing anything bad. He's just trying not to get executed. But the message is like, Earth is. It's very simple. They send a message, and it's like 10 words. It's like, is Autobot refuge? Send reinforcements. I
Mhm.
mean, like to the point. But it's weird that Decepticons aren't like, come down and let's rend this place. It's that's where draft kicks. Yes.
Yeah.
So the action sequence begins. A Memo and Charlie are dropped off. Bumblebee goes up to fight them, and there's a few good points I want to touch on, but I think I've been blabbering on for a bit. So
Yeah. I mean, like, there's nothing like super like exciting. Well, I guess it is like a fairly exciting act, like third act, but there's nothing like super like creative or interesting about it. It's like it's a pretty. I mean, it's definitely way more tame than any of the Michael Bay movies. Sometimes like you just don't need that. There's nothing like super interesting about it. I mean, like the family like comes to like save Charlie even though they wouldn't have done anything, and they have like a kind of cool car car chase from that where like this dad does some sick 180s and donuts, but
he
I
was
don't know.
going
Like
nuts.
it wasn't like there's not like there's a whole lot to say about it. It's just
It's
like
a satisfying conclusion from an action standpoint, and emotional stuff. Like for action, I will say it's more creative than the other movies because the characters are actually turning into vehicles,
mm.
like as part of the fight in a way that I don't know Transformers would. I mean, I didn't bother mentioning it, but Shatter and Dropkick, the two villains, are also triple changers, which they
Oh,
turn
I
into
didn't even
two
notice.
different vehicles and a robot. They're like alien cars. They go to Earth. They become the souped up cars in like Texas or whatever. They go to the military. They scan military air vehicles. So in the finale, they can be land vehicles and also a helicopter and a jet.
Yeah, that's
And they
interesting.
use all their modes fairly frequently. Like Dropkick is like, oh man, Bumblebee's punching me real hard. I'm gonna just fucking fly and shoot him. Shatter is like, oh, the insect Charlie is trying to stop our download, our fucking Xbox Marketplace download. I'm just gonna be a plane, like a VTOL plane, and just shoot her. They're actually
Mhm.
doing stuff with being vehicles, which you said astutely they'd actually transform, but most of the time it's purposeful. It's either Charlie like, Bumblebee need to hide, or the Decepticons like, I can kill you more easily if I am a car or if I am a plane. So I think that's a point that should be credited at least a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
As much as we like, oh man, there's some transformations in these movies. When's the last time it was for an actual raw action sequence? Like as part of like in an action sequence, not just having characters go from place to place, but part of the sequence.
Yeah.
I'm really struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't like get to blabber on about it for so long. So Charlie climbs a tower, saves the day. Uh, and the fucking Decepticons are fucking washed away and destroyed by the
Well,
dam and crashed into like a truck or something
one of
or like a
them
rock.
is. Yeah, Shatter fighting Bumblebee, kicking his ass, like really just going nuts on him, just punching the shit out of him, really, really going at him. And then Bumblebee triggers a dam, and that just explodes her. But what this is the most niche thing. I mean, I've said some fucking niche garbage shit, but this might be the most extreme yet. Dropkick, he's like he uses his ego to his advantage. He's like, oh yeah, he's chains. He just grabs chains. He wraps around the robot, or wraps him around the helicopter. Tries transforming, explodes. Bumblebee. This is the fucking stupid nerd moment. In the first Transformers game, the 2007 movie game, there are blue and gray drones called Dropkick that you fight as Bumblebee that you have to combo with your axe to make them explode. If they seriously took any inspiration from that very hyper specific thing, I think I
You're like the
figured it
white
out.
person who knows that.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's like, it's same name and color scheme and death. There's got to be something. There's got to be something. Right? And it is
Maybe.
another like horrible execution, but they're executing war criminals and not like Barricade executing Wheeljack in the third movie. Like, oh, this guy's nuts. Let's kill him. No, it's like this guy liquefies people for fun. Let's kill him. Like, that's cool. And then the big emotional climax after the action begins to settle is Charlie at the top of this big tower that she's climbed her way up. Actually, I think that's yeah. As she's like what she needs to do to get it, and she's like, "Oh, I'm above water. What do I do?" She confronts her fears, makes a dive like she did. She was a diver. Her dad, the word I'm looking for, like supported her diving career. And she quit when he died.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole time with the scene on the cliff and mentions the whole way through. It's like, oh, I'm not going to do that. She does. Gets in there. It's unconscious. Bumblebee. No, wait. Bumblebee saves her. Or she saves Bumblebee.
Yeah.
I can't
Well,
remember.
I think. Well, because like Bumblebee like fucking start like drowning in the
No,
water,
Bumblebee's washed away, and then she
and
gets
then
him
she
back to
dives in there
consciousness.
to save him, even though she
Yes,
couldn't have
that
done
was.
anything
Yeah,
if
thank
he
you.
was dead in there.
Well, it's like slap him awake and like friendship and whatnot.
Yeah, because I was like, thinking because I'm a lifeguard, and I was like thinking, I was like, even like for me, it would be like difficult. It's difficult to like, get someone who's like even like a little bit heavier than you, even though like there's no way she could have fucking saved Bumblebee, this 100-ton monster. But I digress. That's just like, but whatever. It's just most
Fair.
words are worth
It's more. It's symbolic. She's saving him by being there as a friend. I don't
Yeah.
know, something like that.
Mm.
But after that, and we haven't gotten that much into John Cena's character because he is mostly just quips. He's the stern military man. He's like a roadblock. It's like, hey, girl, you can't do that. That's alien machinery. Pretty standard. Like he's, I would say he's a standout character, but like we explaining it would just be saying like he's funny
Yeah,
and says serious things.
he's just the quip guy
I mean, like
who's supposed to be
he has the
serious.
Decepticon line, which is fun. Or earlier is like, you better not run. She ran. And then my favorite is that's just about before the climax. Bumblebee was taken captive, knocked unconscious by a dropkick, who then betrays and kills the scientist. They're there to get Bumblebee awake. It's supposed to be like, oh, they're gonna get Bumblebee awake. Oh boy. They of course they do. John Cena's like, I need the door open, but he actually goes, "There's a door in my way."
Yeah, there's a
Like
door in
the
my way.
actual fucking most Giga Chad thing you could
Yeah.
possibly say about that situation. And then the explosion almost kills all three of them, which is pretty awesome. Just one good explosion we got in there. Most of it's fairly tame.
Yeah, fairly
But at the
tame.
end of the battle, he's like, "You guys can run. My boys are coming here. You saved the day. I was wrong." It was a pretty standard resolution, but it's satisfactory because he's clearly not like evil. He's just kind of like sort of in a peacemakery way. He's just kind of a dick.
Yeah.
He's not like
I mean, like, what would you
sinister.
do if if giant metal men came crashing to Earth?
And you were a trained military guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. You'd experiment on it. You want to tech for yourself, especially during the Cold War. It's not even most of the villain stuff besides the Decepticons are fairly understandable. It's just them trusting these guys was their fault,
Hmm.
effectively. So just I forgot to mention we haven't didn't say it because it isn't really playing in the story. That there are literally Iron Giant moments where Bumblebee has like red eyes and pulls out his scary gun, which I
Yeah.
think is supposed to be like, oh, it's rejogging his memory as a soldier, but like he didn't have red eyes. He was only kind of a soldier. Why does and it's just because like Iron Giant, you're not a weapon. Like they almost say the exact same, like you're not in the fucking climax this movie has in the Iron Giant. It's kind of
Yeah.
ridiculous. That could have just been cut out, and I would have liked this movie more. Less derivative in that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
But it did. And then the movie roughly ends with her getting the parts to fix up a red car because Bumblebee's like, oh, some of my friends are here. I gotta go. And I think one of my favorite shots in the movie, if not just for what it is, before it symbolizes, is Bumblebee scans the '74 Camaro from the first movie, like almost exact same car,
Hmm.
and it shows at the almost the very end Bumblebee as the movie Camaro driving next to a fully Generation One styled flat nose Optimus Prime, showing that the movie and the original ideas can coexist. It's nice. It's a
Yeah.
nice mental
It
image
would have been nice
after
if it
all
was
this
actually
time.
canon to the first movie, but oh well. It's
If
probably
it was
better.
canon, the first, well, it's more just like they can make a real life movie that values positivity and whatnot.
Yeah, sure.
And then it ends with music montage, which that song is a bop. There's two versions of it. There's the good version and the better version. They play the better version at the end of the movie. It's her like, oh, she got the car. She's little, kind of okay with, what happened with her father. She's more accepting of her family because they actually care for her in the very end. She is friends with Memo, like she just super friend zones him, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, because like
And
he
then
starts
the
holding her
very
hand. She's like, "Oh, we're not there yet." He's like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay."
destroyed. He does literally just say okay. Like he's an entertainingly rounded character.
Yeah.
We're not getting him enough credit. But the end of the movie is Bumblebee and Optimus looking at the sky, multiple almost movie one like meteors crashing down. Wait, I am Optimus. He doesn't give it the full speech, but he is like oh, friends are here,
Yep.
like Decepticon. Which that had not only is it the last scene in the movie, not only is it after the title card, it's also clearly the last thing they did for the because it's a completely fucking weird scuffed model for Bumblebee that is like literally the Volkswagen design with the Camaro parts on it. And also, it's the only part that explicitly contradicts the first movie
Oh yeah, I guess
because
so.
Optimus on Earth
Yep.
and the other Autobots are on Earth.
Oh.
I like that scene. It's a good like sequel baity thing, but it's also if that wasn't there, they could have passed it off as a prequel. So I'm kind of curious why they did it.
I guess maybe like because I guess this was in production like around the same time as Last Night was, and after Last Night like flopped hard. I guess they thought, well, shit. Now we have this movie. It's supposed to be a prequel to this
I
terrible
probably
series, and they're like,
as
let's
just
let's do a
as just
reboot from here and start over. Which, granted, I think this might be the record time of when it goes from sequel into reboot, like basically a
one
little
year.
over a year. Yeah. Which
And
is
obviously this movie
and then
made
and
made
then we're not gonna get another one, so like almost 5 years after Bumblebee, but still.
it was supposed to come out 20 it's supposed to come out I think like last month that movie Rise of the Beast before it was pushed back. Which it was I mean still be a fair few years. I don't know what the hell else Hasbro could be doing. They're not making the G.I. Joe movie, and there's no way they're making a movie about any of the other properties because no one cares
Yeah,
about them.
because like Snake Eyes flopped hard. Battleship.
Oh, they actually did make an MLP movie. I forgot about that. That is Hasbro.
Oh, Barbie, right? Yeah.
Is it Barbie Mattel?
Oh wait.
Am I?
No, yeah, I think Barbie Mattel. Uh,
Forget it. But I'm just like there's obviously the pandemic was reason for some of the hiatus, but also they didn't like did they not start production after Bumblebee? It was moderately successful. And also budget wise, we usually go over budget. This movie had like 100 million or something,
Yeah, it was like less than
and
half that of like most
it does
Transformers
not look
movies.
bad. Like the effects for the most part, I would say look almost a little uncanny in the sense that they're so much smoother and less like disgusting and scuffed. Looking at Bumblebee in this movie versus Bumblebee in other movies, it looks like he wall around in dirt in those, and this
Yeah,
one actually looks like a real entity. Like
I guess.
and one point just briefly that you were bringing up with the first three, the integration of characters and computer effects. This movie, they fucking nail it.
Yeah, no, it was really good. I mean, I guess it doesn't go for as much of a quote unquote realistic look as like the first few movies, but like it still looks
No,
good, and you still believe that like there's actual like robot men interacting with these humans. You know what I'm
Robot
saying?
Woman too. There's a Robot
Yeah.
Woman too. Don't be like that.
All
But
right, sorry, robot people. There you
people, there we
go.
go.
Yeah.
Baycast gone woke. But like when Bumblebee's hugging Haley Steinfeld, I wish that was me. Either way, either direction for that one, I believe it.
Mhm.
Like when like they're sad and they're just chilling. Like yeah, I can imagine that guy that yellow fellow is there.
Mhm.
In other
Yeah.
movies, especially the later one, it's like in 2005 King Kong shit. Like they're just pasted on front of in front of the robots doing crap.
Wait,
No offense,
can you make that? Wait, can you explain that Peter Jackson's King Kong comparison?
because a lot of the all effects of the movie are really good, but when they have to integrate humans, like especially the dinosaur chase and the first dinosaur fight with
Oh
trying to
yeah,
have the love interest, it's really
yeah,
it's
it's not
super
great.
green
I
screen.
do like Peter Jackson's King Kong, but yeah,
No,
that's just not
I was
great.
going to add no like real offense to that movie, especially because it's 2005. But I think like that's the prime example of something that doesn't seem like it was composited particularly well, and this being an example of effects that are composited very well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Obviously, a lot of years apart, but it's progress.
Hmm. They definitely use the budget well. I mean, like I think it is a pretty inspired choice. Just get because like I'm assuming they hired Travis Knight because he's done like a lot of animation and I guess they were hoping they would like get it to merge well with like the real world. I guess like kind of like a similar reason why they hired Andy Serkis for Let Him Let There Be Carnage, even though he's more so like an actor in that regard to like he played characters or played CGI characters to interact in the real world.
Oh no, you're breaking up.
Uh, sorry.
Uh-oh.
Well, I can hear you, but
Oh, we're back.
yeah. Uh, so it's like, but yeah, like I think he did a pretty solid job, all things to get considered, and uh, yeah, and I guess I wouldn't mind seeing him do something else in a similar regard, but yeah. You have any other things to mention about this movie?
I don't have that much else to say. I mean, even though it was definitely not in the overall experience's favor, I did bring up all the little minutia as it was appearing in the movie.
Yeah.
So I've mostly covered that. I mean, I just say I like all the designs. I mean, Bumblebee having the same head, like I think that head is still ugly as shit, but like I get it now. And the new design looks way better. He actually has the right head shape, the horns. So I like they're the design wise, it's improved. I mean, stylistically, I'm not going to call this movie as painfully boring as like an Avengers one in terms of cinematography. It being standard, I think suits it well for being a sort of jack of all trades, Iron Giant esque family friendly movie
Mm-hmm.
about a series that honestly really needed a hit.
Yep.
The movies were hits financially, but look at Transformers as a series. People from different age group brackets are like, oh, I love G1. They grew up with G1. Dude, Armada is fucking lit. Grew up with Armada. But critically overall, there's like three things that people consider any decent quality. And that's like some of the original show for what it is. Maybe want like the first movie at least is adequate, and then
Mm-hmm.
like the show Prime, possibly like Beast War, like the number of things this series has in terms of media, not toys, not even like just shows and in movies that people agree upon is at least decent is so tragically low
Yeah.
when there is potential. As stupid a concept as it is, it's been done, integrating the idea of stupid alien robots into just normal everyday human stuff, like in this movie. You can enhance or at least modify a generic story. In shows like Prime, it's an action show first and foremost, but it focuses on the robots with the human characters providing different perspectives. There's probably an overarching good thing about Beast Wars, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Definitely not
But
the
the what
animation.
not oh no, the animation's stellar, Jacob. The funny dinosaur man has a rubber ducky.
Mm.
That's one good thing everyone can agree on. But this movie just being serviceable after the generally the aberrations that are the other five
Yeah.
is, I think, enough.
It's a
I don't know.
uniting force that everyone will say, you know what, that was pretty decent.
That was pretty decent. It's not, it's not, wasn't breaking the bank, wasn't busting down reviews. So it came out the same month as Spider Verse. That
Yeah.
couldn't have helped. But
But no,
it's
it was pretty
a
solid.
solid. Solid is the word I would say describe it. I mean, from my experience, I'd say it's rewatchable, but it's also rewatchable because it's like a good normal movie and also a good nerd movie because it's like, oh, I know who Soundwave is. Oh my god, that's a reference to Transformers Animated. I've been dropping in the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's something for essentially everyone. When Transformers as a concept is so ludicrously fucking dumb shit stupid that like you go to a Target and there's like a whole wave of Transformers there. Meanwhile, the Halo and Roblox sections are ravaged by children constantly.
Yeah.
There's some lack of appeal that was maybe not remedied, but at least alleviated with this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just just nice, enjoyable, not great, but not terrible. Just nice action, comedy, drama, MCU-ish movie. And you know what? That's all really needed to be.
Action, it does it all,
Yeah.
except really engage you beyond surface level.
Yeah. But you know what?
How far are you going to
Not
get
too
when it
bad.
comes to a story about Transformers?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep. Um. Yeah. I think we pretty much covered everything. Uh. You got anything else to say?
I don't think so. I mean, I've also been using this as a way to conclude my thoughts on the Transformers movie series, and so far, the final entry in the theatrically released Transformers saga being something very much different from the first five, and I'm gonna assume pretty different from the next one too. That's just my
Yeah.
hunch. I don't. That's not kind of. It's kind of baseless assumption, but
Mm-hmm.
just being what it is rather than what fucking Lorenzo di Bonaventura and Michael Bay wanted to be. It's refreshing to see something diverge a bit in a good way.
Yeah, for sure.
And also,
Uh.
thank you whoever designed these characters because I have essentially every toy from.
Oh my god! Of course you do.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Let me just pick up my Studio Series Blitzwing, the guy
Yeah.
that died in the first 2 minutes.
um.
Oh, or my Studio Series Starscream, who was in the movie for a collective 3 seconds.
Yeah. Uh. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. So, thank you guys for watching. Or listening, I guess. And thank you for obviously staying through the end of the podcast. Join us next week ish or whenever then we get the next video out. When
Sometime
we talk
soon.
about, I guess now it's time for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't feel
I
like
think
we'll
we'll
have
just
much
cover. I think we'll cover them
to
separately because,
Yeah,
yeah. Uh,
there
I think there's enough to
mm,
talk about with each of them because,
was enough to talk about with two. Holy shit!
yeah, I'm definitely more. I definitely know a little more about TMNT than Transformers because I watched like some of the shows as a kid. but I'm not like a huge fan or anything,
No,
so it'll be kind of
well, you'll
interesting
be
to see.
closer to a specialist than
Yeah,
I did probably. Well, I have seen both of these movies, and it
yeah. I saw the first one.
no
I
man.
haven't seen the second one, and it was kind of rough.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, oh, you are in for something, my friend.
yeah. All right, so look forward to that in around a week's time. Yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye.